to the FuturePrint Tech Fest for our first panel for our 5 critical steps for industrial inkjet success. The point of our 5 steps really is to help people through their journey with inkjet in order to integrate the right technology. And what we've done is we've assembled a team of experts, world-class experts from the world of digital manufacturing and inkjet technology to help us really understand what those building blocks of success actually are. We're starting with strategy and communication, and I'm now going to introduce our panel. From left to right, we have John Patsavalis, who's a senior lecturer at Cranfield University. He lectures in digital manufacturing. Welcome, John.
Okay.
Graham Kennedy is the Director of Industrial Print for Ricoh Europe. Ricoh are one of the world leaders of inkjet technology and integration worldwide, very famous. Welcome, Graham. To my left, David Johnson is the Sales Director for Integration Technology, a world leader in curing technology for printing in a variety of different markets. Welcome, David.
Hi.
And Simon Daplin is the Product and Marketing Manager for Sun Chemical. Sun Chemical are one of the, or if not the largest manufacturer of inks for printing. Welcome, Simon.
Hi, Marcus.
So the point of today really is to talk through some of the key issues and starting with strategy. I'll start with Graham. So Graham, in your view, is inkjet the right technology for your strategy? Is that one of the key questions anybody should ask at the beginning of their journey with inkjet?
Yeah, I think it's an important thing to understand right from the outset. Anyone who frequently attends some of the FuturePrint summits may have heard my colleague Richard Darling talk about digital analogic in the past. So developing products for the sake of technology without actually understanding what the benefit of that technology might be. So understanding from the beginning who's driving the project and what you want to achieve from the project is going to be of huge significance. Is it your manufacturing department driving? Are they looking for upstream process benefits? Is the project being driven by marketing, where they're looking for downstream value add? Is it the operations department looking for SKU efficiencies or waste management? It could be either of those. It could be all of them, or maybe there are other factors that are driving the development. Maybe it's a corporate objective. Maybe it's market forces. Sustainability is one of the driving forces that is really prevalent in today's market. So having an understanding of the driving forces behind the project is critical from the outset, so you can avoid internal conflict and understand the direction that you want to go in.
Yeah, so really interrogating why inkjet and then what problem it's actually solving.
Absolutely.
Is kind of key. Obviously, digital manufacturing, John, is your area of speciality. Inkjet is a digital manufacturing technology, I would say. I guess one of the questions that we're kind of keen to ask is, how will inkjet work within a digital manufacturing strategy? Want to tell us a little bit about that?
It's a big subject. It's the subject of our time.
Yeah.
Manufacturing is going through its digitalization paradigm, and we all heard about 4.0 and print factories. I think that already have inkjet in their arsenal have an advantage over everybody else, every other type of manufacturing, because digital inkjet integrates really well with the effort of connecting everything. Because digital transformation manufacturing means that, like an industrial internet, you're now able to plug everything into a connected network, preferably an open one with an open protocol, not something that's proprietary. So I think inkjet is part and parcel of a digitalizing strategy. But again, echoing Graham's points, a lot of manufacturers are very practical people. They need to be. And they have to anchor the acquisition of inkjet into some kind of solving of a need, of an issue for themselves or a customer.
Yeah.
And understanding that is fundamental. But absolutely, it's part and parcel of transformation that a print factory can go through. By the way, I think it's an enabler, because if it's the backbone of what you produce, being able to connect to it and take data from it is a bonus on that journey. You already have digital data streams. What you need to be careful is finding the ones that are valuable to you, so you don't store a lot of data that is what I call data junk, data waste. The journey of the digital transformation in manufacturing has that trap. Simply because I generate a lot of data doesn't mean that it's good data.
Yeah.
And AI is not going to solve that problem.
Right.
You need to start with valuable data streams, subscribe and publish type of protocol architecture is a good way to start.
Yeah, okay, brilliant. So with the strategy, with how it works within digital manufacturing and everything else, obviously working with people with expertise and the right expertise. So Graham, how important is it forming the right team, including perhaps that team collaborating with the client?
Yeah, I think a team is critical. In our market, we operate in an extremely fragmented supply chain. So if you're going into an inkjet development, the likelihood is that you would have to engage with multiple suppliers from various different parts of the supply chain. So developing a team to do that is critical. And I think that team should involve experts from all of those different sectors. You know, particularly if you're engaging in a project for the first time, don't try and do everything yourself. You know, work with people who've been there, they've done it before, they can help you avoid some of the pitfalls that others have fallen into in the past. You know, so whether it's print heads, electronics, whether it's ink, process development, building a prototype, you know, there are many experts out there. So my advice would be engage with all of those, bring them into your team, and be open to the learning that they can provide, because that will be valuable. It will be valuable for the project today, where they can help you maybe overcome time, cost issues, and ultimately accelerate your time to market, bringing benefits from that perspective.
Yeah, brilliant.
So,
yeah, having team and the right people is really important. Obviously, once you've got a team in place, David, so communication is really important. So if you're not trying to do it yourself, you're working with your experts. How important, in your view, is communication to the whole process?
Absolutely paramount. You've got to be able to talk to one another and talk to the integrator who's actually building the machine. There are many people who are experts in their field, and quite often we get stymied by NDAs that prevent us talking to one another. We know who the supplier of the ink is or the inkjet heads, but we can't talk to them because the NDA is so prescriptively written, you can't get around it. We are the experts, and frankly, most of the time we have no interest in who the integrator's customer is anyway. So the integrator's proprietary information is who their customer is and their access to a market, but that's not a market that we or the other expert suppliers are usually dealing with. So it's really, really important that we are allowed to communicate with one another. We can offer the best service to the integrator.
Yeah, so that kind of...
Mark, I think that's a really good point that David raises, actually, about the NDA being a barrier to development. And particularly if you're developing a team, then you can overcome the barriers that NDA might put in a one-to-one relationship, you know, by bringing everyone into the same agreement, so we can all talk to each other. So I think that's, David, a really important point that as a network, you know, we need to try and kind of bridge.
Yeah, absolutely. So collaboration is, when you have communication, you have a team, obviously that's a factor. Often, I imagine the NDA and people trying to keep it to themselves is about control, isn't it? It's about kind of like being empowered and in control. But, John, how important, in your view, is collaboration, one, and also being humble? Yeah.
Without humility, you think you know everything.
Yeah.
And I think most brilliant people that I've met in my life are people who continue to learn. And as they continue to learn, they realize how very little they know. And I think the print industry can be afflicted by people who think they know deeply about something, and that qualifies them to talk about wider subjects. I think, as David has said, and Graham, as I have heard some very, very people in the thick of the revolution of 4.0 talk about is that nobody's an expert in these things. And if they say, they can't be, because the field, and I've done the research on this one just to see how the thought leadership and the state of the art in technology has moved the last 40 years. And if we look at the literature that's been published, the subjects are exploding. Every little subject has its own depth. This is not, it's impossible for one person to know it all. There are experts. How do you find them? I think the print industry, specifically in the UK, is a benign environment. I have come across wonderful people, and we have some here today, who are very willing to engage with customers, or potential customers, or people who are not even their customers because they have a giving mindset. And I think that's fundamental. This is, I think, an advantage in our landscape in the printing industry. It's nice to have it. I think clients and people in the print world need to take advantage of that. That is the cooperative structure. And it starts by being humble, understanding that nobody is an expert. If someone rocks up and says, I know anything about 4.0 and digital manufacturing, run away. But they may know something that will help you create your own vision for your business. Because let's face it, the world is very disruptive. You need alliances. What we've seen through COVID-19 are the people who already had a network of others within the supply chain and within the technology sector. When opportunities arose, they could engage those contacts really quickly. And they could capitalize on opportunities. They're the ones that thrived through disruption. And I think that humble, collaborative, open mindset that is about learning and exploring and asking the right questions. And in fact, there's a process to getting to ask the right questions. Let's all become learners.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Sort of the tyranny of expertise can be that you get locked in, can't you, to a certain way of thinking, and actually just kind of going, look, let's solve problems together. You can get things done. A key question, I think, Graham, and I think we mentioned before, is what about economics? So is a clear understanding of the ROI right at the beginning fairly important in your view?
Absolutely. It's critical. And actually, I can link it back to what John's talking about being humble and having collaborations. Because in the same way as I talked earlier about using an expert team to help develop your product, you can benefit by collaborative partnerships to deliver your ROI. As an OEM system maker, perhaps operating in your home market, you already have the supply chain, the sales infrastructure in place to help you go to market. But if you're going into new markets, how do you get your message out there? How do you get the credibility into new markets? And collaboration can be the route to accelerating the business and delivering a return on investment. At Ricoh, we've developed relationships which we've talked about many times with Olbrich and with Human, where we act as a technology partner and they have access to the customers and the route to market. Koenig & Bauer Durst is another great example of two companies who offer different elements to take a new product into a new market. So collaboration is key to delivering a return on investment. Understand how you're going to go to market, how you're going to get to your customer and bring in the revenues, of course. Yeah,
and of course, I guess it gives you the market intelligence of that industry, enables you to do the sums effectively at the beginning, because we're all for disruption, but disruption without an ROI is not what we're looking for. Simon, I'm going to bring you into the discussion now. Obviously, Sun Chemical, world leader of ink, and yourself, you've been in the industry many years and have worked in various markets, developing inks and so on. I'm going to ask you, how important is the ink? And it's an obvious one, but often, is that always the case? Is ink always talked about at the beginning? Over to you, really. How important is the ink?
Well, as Graham rightly pointed out, I think teamwork is essential, and each of the building blocks of the technology play a critical role in delivering a solution, right? Whether it's the print head, the ink delivery system, the software, the electronics. But really the fluid dictates whether the project will be a success or not, the ink. Because ultimately, when you've done the printing, it's the ink that becomes part of the finished product that then has to go and perform in the market that it's been designed for. And the ink, if it's not considered early enough, can almost make the project more complex, because the ink dictates a lot of things. So the print head will dictate a little bit what the ink needs to do in terms of its viscosity, flow behavior, how it jets. But if you get the jetting and then the drying part wrong, or you don't consider up front what kind of fluid it is, how you're going to dry it and cure it, how you're going to stick it to the substrate, then ultimately you're going to encounter problems later on. So unless you consider strategically what's the best fluid to deliver the solution that you're looking for, I think you're going to come unstuck fairly quickly in a project. And it's the onus is on ink manufacturers like ourselves and others to really build those bridges with the rest of the technology providers to ensure that the ink is considered upfront, that we're making it compatible for the print heads that have been chosen for the particular reason, that it's working with the drying systems, that it's got the accuracy we need, but also delivers all the end user characteristics that the customer's looking for in the final product.
Yeah, and as you said, teamwork's really important for that.
Absolutely.
So not doing that at the beginning can limit success and cause problems that you have to solve, which if you got it right at the beginning, it would just expedite the process.
Yeah, potentially.
Yeah.
I mean, there's no doubt that the trend in the market is towards water-based inks for various reasons. I think there's a lot of movement behind sustainability and the thought that a water-based product is more environmentally friendly. The issue with a water-based ink is you have to dry it. So a UV ink with the high technology curing systems that we have available essentially can instantaneously dry on a substrate and give you a very fast process. If you select a water-based ink for your strategy, then you need to understand that whatever you're printing it onto, you've got to evaporate that water away. You've got to dry it somehow. And there's an expectation sometimes that the drying process can be very fast and a small part of the printing system, when in reality drying water is a lot harder than most people expect it to be. And that really can dictate the speed, whether you're going for a single pass or a scanning system at the start. The thought process behind fluid selection can dictate a lot of what the other components need to deliver as well. Okay,
and water-based, does that always mean that the ink itself is quite pure? Or is that a bit naive?
The reality is a water-based ink, if formulated correctly, can give you all the credentials that people tend to look for. But just because an ink has some water content within it doesn't mean that it's environmentally friendly, doesn't mean that it's right for your process, or because you're looking for a sustainable solution, the first thing is, I must have a water-based ink, and that's the only thing I'll consider.
It's not always the answer.
It's not always the case.
No.
It's really about understanding your workflow, your process, what the final product needs to be, and what the chemistry of the ink is. There's many inks that have a good content of water, but also contain other solvents and resins or perhaps impurities that may not translate into an eco product or a product that's compliant at the end, which is most people's natural thought when they look at a water-based ink.
Okay, thanks for that. David, sustainability. So obviously it's a nice relationship to the conversation we just had. And obviously with your expertise in curing, what about sustainability? How important is that in the kind of strategic look at an inkjet project?
You need to decide at the beginning how important sustainability is of what you're trying to produce and how you're trying to produce it. So there's a couple of angles there. So you've got the product that's going to come out the end, and what's the sustainability, recyclability, and all of those good words that we need to consider. And as Simon was saying, that it's got to be considered at the beginning, whether, maybe water-based is the right way to go, maybe UV is the right way to go, maybe E-beam is the right way to go. There's lots of different ways of doing it, but you need to consider what you're trying to achieve at the end to get the right things in place at the beginning in the manufacturing process to make that. And then you look at the products that you're putting in at the beginning to make sure they are sustainable as well, and maybe are eco-friendly in terms of energy use, and what they're producing out of it. So, for instance, a UV curing process is effectively doesn't have any solvents in it. The solvent could be a solvent as we know it, or it could be water, or it could be any other vehicle that is driven off to leave a dried process. So you have to just consider all of these things. And obviously I'm from a UV company and I would promote UV, but quite rightly, there are other ways of doing the same process.
Right. And you, I mean, this is a general question really, are you seeing more demands for sustainable products? Is
People
it
start to
rising
ask
on the agenda?
questions about what are you putting into your product so that at the end of life they know what they've got to deal with, or that you can be upgraded rather than just thrown away. So we build an architecture which is very modular, so that if we get an advance, we can go back to our customers and say, look, we've got an advance. You don't have to throw the whole thing away. You can use 90% of what you've got and just replace part of it, and you can catch up with the technology.
Because John, your keynote is around sustainable digital, isn't it? Around sustainability. So
yes, my view is that it's a complex issue, and again, having a humble mindset, I think what Simon and David said resonate, that it's about a life cycle analysis of the whole product. And back to the case, the customer, the Generation Zers are beginning to ask that question. Is the product I just bought true to what I believe in, my values of not hurting the planet or people or even the climate? And being able to say, by buying this product, by using my product, you helping the planet. Being able to stand up and be really true about that is something that manufacturers increasingly will want to figure how to do. And therefore, dealing with that type of complexity, they need a little bit of help. Doing life cycle analysis is not an easy thing. It does take a little bit of understanding, and you don't do it on your own. Try get people behind you. And there's science. Evaporating water at really high speed. And I trust me, I've done the maths behind this. It's fascinating. It's not easy to understand. But there are people who can help to explain that. And once you do understand how a carrier gets evaporated to actually give you a really pristine-looking product that doesn't carry any nasties, then you begin to have some kind of valued philosophy of how you run your business. And you embed that way of thinking in every new product and every new project. I think that's part of the journey of collaboration we talked about earlier on. Sustainability is a big factor because we also generate enormous amounts of data, and data isn't free. Data, in fact, is energy. And a gigabyte of data, holding it over 10 years' time, is 1.5 kilograms of CO2. We don't think about it when we go around snapping pictures of people and thinking, it's just nothing. Well, lots of tiny little things add up over a period of time. That's why we've seen data centers springing up like mushrooms everywhere. It's the story of our time. So we need to be able to be data mindful and have a degree of data sobriety in our thinking as well. There's a lot to consider here. But it starts with that humbleness to say we need to change the way we do things and put sustainability at the forefront of what our customers want, because they will hold us accountable of what future we give them. And everything that we do when we create physical products leaves a footprint behind. So does data, which we cannot see because it's not tangible.
I think, John, you could argue that a responsible manufacturer should always have sustainability at the forefront of their mind. But I think the reality today is that sustainability is forced upon the manufacturer from the consumer, as you say. And I think textile is a great example, and I know Simon's heavily involved in the textile industry. I think that the textile industry has realised how important sustainability is, not just from an ink perspective, Simon, but from an overproduction, an overcapacity perspective as well. And that's really driven the demand for inkjet printing in the sector.
Yeah, no doubt. The consumer, you're right, is the consumer driving the brands to change. It's the brands that need to be the ones that influence the change in a way. But the consumer buying habits of fast fashion and throwaway culture has kind of perpetuated this need to produce huge amounts of textile that are often done in Southeast Asia, far away from the consumer. And there's some terrible statistics about how many items or garments are never actually worn and just go straight to landfill. And what digital technology can enable is that just-in-time production, the reduction on reliance of inventory from the Far East. You can bring production closer to the consumer, study the trends, and then react to what the market is asking for, rather than mass producing on demand and hoping that you can sell it.
Yeah, so it's a big sea change and a big value for
Absolutely.
inkjet. R&D is obviously a key factor with innovation, so research and development, of course. David, in your view, is R&D, is too much R&D a help or a hindrance to progress?
Well, I'm a salesman, so clearly it's a hindrance. But in all honesty, you've got to do an amount of research and development. And if we separate the two, research and development, research in our view at our company is that it's the blue sky thinking. It's not necessarily the next product you're going to produce. It's a new technology that you're looking at in 3 years, 5 years down the road. Development is a new product that you're going to produce. And it's the same for an OEM manufacturer who's looking to integrate a group of products to make a new machine. And there has to be a time where you say, well, hold on, it's good enough. Let's take it to market. Let's start selling it, because you also learn from that process as well. So you've got now a product that you're actually generating some revenue from, but also you've learned something from that first generation of machine, if you like, as long as you can sell it. There's got to be a point where it's got to be marketable. But apart from that, if you can get out there and sell it, then you can start generating some income, which is great, and that keeps the bean counters happy. But also you generate experience, and you know what you want. You have a better idea of the questions you need to ask for the next generation of machine.
I suppose you get examples where some companies have a project that they keep in-house or as a tangential thing and don't actually bring it to market because they're spending too much time perfecting it. Does that happen?
Effectively, yes.
Yeah.
One of our customers a few years ago had exactly that. Had a fantastic machine. I'm lucky enough to have some of the prints off of it in my office. They're really, really stunning and done on some really weird and wonderful substrates. They never brought it to market. They chose to go a different way, whether that's right or wrong. But they developed it and they learnt what to do when they did it. And now, 10 years later, you can see some of the elements from that machine coming through in their current machines.
Right.
Sorry,
right.
I'm not at liberty to say the customer's name,
but they might have got there quicker if they'd actually launched it and tried it.
Maybe
Yeah.
if they tried it out, they
Yeah.
would have got somewhere with it much more quickly.
Absolutely right. Simon, in your opinion, what other factors should we be thinking about that are important, perhaps, at the beginning of an inkjet project?
Really, one of the things we don't discuss enough in strategy, and Graham alluded to it at the beginning, is really what you're trying to achieve and how you're trying to achieve it. And although the inkjet technology and as an industry we've evolved massively in the last 10 years, I mean, leaps and bounds in terms of what was available and what is available. But so many projects start with trying to do the most difficult, complex solution possible, rather than taking a step back and understanding how to fit a digital production into a factory. And more the customers that want to implement digital aren't necessarily machine builders or OEMs. They're the brand or the user of the system, and they've got an existing production line that's doing some printing, or have a production line that exists, and they want to put an inkjet line over the top of that so that it shortens the footprint, and they've got everything in line, and it's a very seamless operation. But that brings with it a huge amount of complexity in terms of the transport of the system, the accuracy, how you manage the inkjet. And there's no doubt that inkjet is a production solution now. It is reliable. It will deliver very high quality prints over a long period of printing. But inevitably, if the environment isn't right or something changes over the course of a production period, you're going to have to stop the line to clean the print heads or perform some maintenance. And as soon as you do that, and you've decided to put that print engine over an existing production line, your whole production line is stopped. And I think there's not often a consideration of how complex the technology that we're bringing is, and maybe there's sometimes, to start your journey in digital, a better way of implementing maybe a nearline solution or something that's a printer close to the production line that allows you to have that flexibility of keeping your production line running at full speed and also having the digital print as part of the process.
Yeah, so it's taking a step, but not trying to revolutionise everything immediately.
Yeah, there's no doubt it will work in some cases, but in many, there's probably a simpler way of implementing the technology to start realising profit or the benefits of digital earlier by maybe taking an initial step before going to the final inline solution.
And I guess it's learning, isn't it? It's learning the new technology. It's learning what the value is and how you're going to use it and so on, rather than... you get that. You mentioned analogic.
I think Simon's talking about there, the tendency to, if you're building a standalone piece of equipment, is to be bigger, to be faster, to have better image quality. But process is key. If you're going into many of these analog marketplaces where the process has been fine-tuned over decades. So understanding where the inkjet technology fits in, both pre and post. There's no point in developing a 150 metre per minute digital printer if your post process is running at 50 metres a minute. So understand the process, understand where inkjet fits in and where it can add the most value. Of course, that's critical.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
And of course, the end user is going from an analog process to a digital process, and they're different. So they're on a big learning curve as well. Massive learning curve. They've got to learn how to use the equipment, how to look after it, as Simon alluded to. The amount of print shops you go into, and they've been doing it a certain way for years, and they just think the digital should be the same.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, it has different requirements. I'm not saying they're any more onerous, but they might be a simpler cleaning task that has to be performed more often. Rather than a big cleaning task that needs to be done less often. It's a mindset.
Yeah, it's a mindset, and it's a learning mindset, and also it's discovering the unique value of digital, isn't it? That it isn't really a replacement technology in the way that perhaps digital has replaced other things in our lives, like smartphones and so on. Obviously, I'm going to, before we wrap up, kind of touch on another key step. That's communication and marketing. I've witnessed as well where people have bought out some very clever technology but not actually had any strategy for marketing and communicating it. How important do you think this is, Simon? Is this something you consider to be important, being somebody who's involved in marketing?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think sometimes as an industry we're a little bit guilty of being technical people, talking to technical people about technical things and not really explaining what the benefits are in real terms to the customer. So we talk a lot about here are the list of benefits that you get from inkjet, and the reality is the consumer doesn't care. Most of the users of the technology, they understand some of the benefits, but when you're talking to the guy that's running the machine in production, he wants to know what it means to him, what benefits it brings him, how we make his life easier, how we enable companies to make more money. And I think there's a better job that we can do in communicating the message of inkjet to the market. And I think sometimes we're guilty of being inkjet guys talking to other inkjet guys about how great inkjet is. And we all know that. We all passionately believe that this is a technology for the future that can deliver real solutions. But ultimately, it's not us that's going to be using the technology, and bridging that gap and making sure that who's implementing it really understands what's involved in that, how to implement it, and the fact that we're selling like high-ticket systems, and we spend a huge amount of investment in R&D and development and build of these machines, and a very minor amount in comparison to promoting it and selling that system into the market, because we think everyone should just get it. We know this is a great machine and it does exactly what it is, so why isn't everyone just running to buy it? And I think that message needs to be communicated in a better way.
Yeah, because I think you're right. I mean, the mainstream of any market is going to want to see evidence of success, and to an extent, a lot of the risk removed before they make what is quite a significant investment, both in monetary terms, but also, as you said, in terms of process. It's something that's disruptive, isn't it? Doesn't follow the same set of rules. So I think that's really important communication in terms of reducing people's anxiety as much as anything.
Into new industries, you often find customers coming and say, I really like the idea of inkjet, but I want to wait to see someone else do it first, and so I can see how it works in reality. That's because we haven't really explained well enough to them what benefits they're going to get. Some of the industries we work in, especially that are adopting digital for the first time, are quite conservative in their approach. As mentioned, they're coming from an analog background where they've got very clear processes, they understand exactly what's going on. When you implement a new technology, it's scary for a lot of people. And what they really want to be is the second or third implementer of the new technology, not the pioneer, because for them it's too big a step to take because they don't fully understand what benefits that digital can bring, and that's the message that we need to be better at delivering.
Yeah, and actually,
and I think helping them to de-risk that process as well. I think Simon, you spoke a moment ago about bringing in products that are, very, very high tech, very fast, very high resolution. But actually, the more complexity you bring into a project, the greater the risk of its failure, or the greater the risk that it's going to take a long time to come to market. So, kind of de-risking that development by understanding the process and the easiest route to market, I think is what all of our jobs are about.
Yeah. And that's got from what you were saying and what you were saying, Simon. So internal communication within the team, but then equally external communication with the partner and with the wider market to kind of really sort of help them learn that the new technology offers something unique and different, and not something that's sort of perhaps threatening and too risky. Yeah.
Absolutely. I believe there is a gap in the market. Not just in the print industry, but across manufacturing. And that is, how do you bridge analog to digital? They're not mutual. They don't have to be mutually exclusive. They can play nice together. But there is a gap. There are not a lot of people who can actually give you that bridge. I certainly don't believe the digital world is a completely different domain. The digital, inkjet digital, can work with your existing devices. It's just that there are not a lot of people who can tell you how to do it. And we need more use cases to give people the confidence that I can make the transition. Right now, we have a skills gap in understanding how to do that, not just in the print sector, but in most manufacturing sectors. People are beginning to get the benefits of digital inkjet. Well, what they don't know is how to plug digital into their analog legacy factory, how to go from a legacy factory to a smart factory. And this is where the work the next few years needs to happen. And the print sector needs to look at other sectors as well to see how they're doing. Maybe there's use cases in adjacent sectors to learn from.
Okay, so any final comments, gentlemen, before we wrap up, really, around strategy and communication?
I can go. I think I think we covered all the fundamentals, right? It's about bringing the right people together with the right set of expertise, allowing them to talk to each other in an open way to accelerate the project. So don't put the blocks in the way, but really about understanding the technology, the benefit it can bring, and being open and collaborative. Understand what you're trying to achieve, fundamentally why you're trying to achieve it. And then if you have the right experts to help you deliver that, then you should be able to do it very successfully. Okay, thank you. So, John, Graham, David, Simon, thank you very much. That's the end of our strategy and communication panel, 5 critical steps for inkjet. Thanks very much, gentlemen. I enjoyed that. And look, hope you join us for our following panels. Thank you.